you need to know how to estimate these rehab costs as close as possible to what they actually are. I mean, you really need to get this down. You really need to know, get a good rehab estimate, because that way your offer is going to be precise when you go to these properties. We're all going to look at a property. It's a rehab deal. We're going to walk in the front door. But before we walk in the front door, here's what we're going to look for. You're going to look up at the roof, and you are going to see how many layers of shingles are on that roof. So if you look up at the roof and you see how many layers of shingles are on that roof, okay, anything over 2 layers of shingles is a tear off. And I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. When you stand back to the curb and you look at the house and you look at the roof, right, you can usually tell by the spaces in the shingles of how wide they are whether the roof needs to be replaced or not. Over the years, shingles start off with, if they're not dimensional shingles and they're just standard shingles, they start off with very small spaces between the shingles. As the years go by, those spaces start to spread. So if you go to a house and you look at it from the curb and you see that these spaces are spread way too far, or you think that they're spread more than like 1/4 of an inch on each shingle, chances are that roof needs to be replaced. But if it's dimensional shingles, which I encourage you to look up online to see the difference between regular shingles and dimensional shingles. Dimensional shingles last for about 25 years. So if there's dimensional shingles on a roof, that's not going to need to be replaced. But if there's standard shingles and they're starting to spread, then the roof needs to be replaced. So as you're standing at the curb, you're going to be able to see that. And again, go ahead and Google dimensional shingles compared to regular shingles, and you'll see the difference. And if there's 2 layers or more on the roof, as you look on the side of the house, you'll be able to see the layers of the roofing at the front. If there's anything more than 2 layers of roof on a house, that means that whole roof is a tear off to put a new roof on. Okay, because anything over 2 layers is too heavy for the roof and you can't go on top of it. Tear offs are more money than regular roofs, okay? But if it's only 1 layer of shingles on that roof, then they can just put another roof on top of that, which is a lot cheaper. Again, you can find these estimates on how to do the roofs, because I did in the real estate den, I offered a book called, it was the contractor, RS Means Contractor Guide for 2020 is in the real estate den. You can get that guide because inside that guide is going to give you prices for everything, for roofs, for shingles, all that. Okay, so if you get the RS Means 2020 guide, it's really a great investment to have. I know the book is maybe like $50, but it's really worth it because it's going to give you the prices of everything you need as far as rehab goes. So again, the roof, what you would do with that is, like, say the property just needs a new roof. Well, you're going to take the square footage of the property, and in the RS Means guide, it's going to tell you how much it's going to cost to replace that roof. So that's why it's so important to get this guide for wholesaling, because the RS Means Contractor Guide is the same thing that we use for our contracting company to figure out costs of materials and labor. So getting that guide is really, really important because it's really going to help you when it comes time to figuring out those rehab numbers. Now, I did put a link to the guide in the real estate den on the resource page. You can get the guide from Amazon. So if you click on that link, you can go ahead and get the RS Means Contractor Guide. It's probably about $58, but it's well worth it because it's going to help you get really good estimate costs on these properties. Okay, so let's go back to the house. We're at the house. We looked at the roof. Okay, we determined whether it's a tear off or just one roof. Okay, and now as you're looking at the house and you're looking at the front of the house, you want to walk around the house because you want to see the bottom of the house, because you want to see if there's any cracks in that foundation. You want to make sure as you walk around the bottom of the house, even with sided houses, the bottom's usually left open, right? Around the outskirts of the house. It's not sided down to the ground. It's usually left open. So you need to walk around to see if you see any stress, like little stress cracks are okay, but make sure you don't see anything that's like 2 inches or more going up the house. Then it questions the foundation of the property, okay? So you're going to walk around the house. You're going to look for that. And then you're going to look at windows. So even looking at the front of the house, or as soon as you walk in the house, if you look at the windows, aluminum windows are older windows, right? A lot of the investors now are going to replace those windows with double-paned windows. They're going to replace them with either Andersons, which is regular double-pane windows, the white ones. So if you look at the windows, and if they're wooden, they're going to be replaced. If they are aluminum, they're going to be replaced. So to replace a window, and this is how the guide will tell you the same thing, the RS Means Guide, to replace each window, you have to count the windows in the house. Each window, if it's a regular size window, is going to run you about $350 to replace each window. So if there's 10 windows in the house, you're going to just times the 10 by $350 to get an estimate for the amount to replace the windows. Windows are generally, depending on your area, here in New Jersey, we pay $350 a window. That covers the install and the purchase of the window. If they're regular 36-inch windows, like 32 to 36. But if they're your big bay windows, then you're going to have to look in the contractor guide to figure out the price for that. But generally, windows are about $350 per window to replace the windows. So you want to get a count of how many windows are in the property. And I'm going to give you a form after this. I'm going to put it in the comments section. I think Teresa already has it, where you can just, as you're going through the property, you're going to check off and write down numbers on it. It's already printed out for you. Okay, so it makes it a lot easier to go through and get these rehab estimates. Okay, so we did the windows, the roof, and we looked around the foundation to see if anything's going on, right? So as you're walking in the property, you're going to look at the floors, okay? The flooring, if it's carpeting, you want to go to the corner of the room and pick up that piece of carpeting to see what's underneath of it. Now, of course, all carpeting is going to be replaced if that's what the investor is going to keep there. But sometimes if you pull up the corner of the room and you pull up the carpeting, you have some nice wood floors under there that could probably just be refinished. But you won't know until you you have to go to the corner of the room to pull back the carpeting to kind of see what's underneath of it, to see if it's a wood floor that could be refinished. And that's great, because that's probably what the investor is going to end up doing. A lot of investors don't like to carpet houses, so they probably won't put new carpeting over in the rooms. I know I don't like to carpet houses. They don't sell as well as houses with maybe laminate flooring or wood flooring. So that's absolutely what the investor is going to want to do. So you're going to go in the house, you're going to look at the flooring. Don't worry about the carpeting, because that's going to be torn up. But you go to the corner of the room and you pull back the corner and you're going to see what's underneath of there. So underneath of there, you either have like a tongue and groove or a wood floor, or you're going to have plywood. If you have plywood, that means that the investor is going to go ahead and probably just put laminate over top of that. If you have hardwood, that means that the investor is probably going to sand that down and restain that, or try to get that hardwood back up again. He's not going to go back on with the carpeting, because that's very rare. As an investor, I know I'll never do that. Again, to figure that out, your RS Means book, that's where that comes in at, to figure out the prices. But at the end of this, I'm going to go ahead and give you a formula that I use to get an all-out cosmetic rehab price for a property in like 30 seconds. And I'm going to show you that at the end of this, after we're done going through everything. Okay, so you already looked at the windows, you looked at the roof, you looked at the foundation, you walked in, you pulled up, you looked at the flooring. You already know what you're working with. Make sure you take notes. And then you're going to walk and you're going to go to the kitchen, okay? You look at the kitchen. If the cabinets look pretty crappy, then the investor's probably going to demo the kitchen, take it out, and redo it all. So he's probably going to go in with the cabinets, the countertop, new appliances. So for a general kitchen, for a general L-shaped kitchen, okay, it's probably going to run around $10,000 to demo that, put that back together. Okay, that's just for a regular, normal L-shaped kitchen. For the more fancier kitchens that are like the U-shaped, or it gets a little bit more expensive than that. But the average kitchen, L-shaped kitchen, is probably going to run you around $10,000 to gut it, take it out, and put it back in. It gets more expensive as you go into like the different shapes of kitchens. You get the islands. There's a lot more involved in that, but as a wholesaler, you're not really going to be worried about that. You're going to be worried about getting a general estimate to replace the kitchen. So when you walk into that kitchen and you see an L shape, automatically 10 grand to put new appliances in there, a new countertop, new sink, new faucets, new cabinets. If the kitchen's a little bit more funkier than that, and you go around and say it's a U-shaped kitchen, 15 grand automatically in your head to put that kitchen back together again. So L-shaped kitchen, 10 grand. Just figure that out. U-shaped kitchen, 15 grand. You're just going to get that in your head. Get that number in your head, because that's the number you're going to come up with as soon as you're walking through that property. Because that money, that 10 grand for that L-shape is going to cover all your appliances, your new sink, your new faucets, any new plumbing that needs to be done, your countertops, your cabinets. So you're going to figure that out when you walk in there for the kitchen. So it's easy to just, as a wholesaler, just kind of say, okay, this is 10 grand, 15 grand. You don't need to go measuring anything because you're not the one doing the rehab, but you're going to give an estimate of how much it's going to be. Okay, so we did the kitchen. So as you're walking through also, you're going to look like, for example, the ceiling fixtures. Okay, a lot of the ceiling fixtures, a lot of investors, I should say all investors, including myself, we replace every ceiling fixture in the house because we like them to be uniform. I love bronze. I do all my light fixtures in bronze. So I'm going to replace every light fixture in that house, you know, as I'm rehabbing that house. It's just something I'm going to do automatically. So you want to keep account of, okay, there's 4 bedrooms, that's 4 lights. You know, you kind of want to keep account of the lights because you're going to be writing them down to try to get the estimates on that. So as you're going through, you just kind of look at the lights and just get a number and write it down. You know, you don't need to get too detailed as a wholesaler, but you're just going to write down how many lights are in there so that you can get kind of a little better estimate on how much it's going to cost to replace them. And as you're walking through the property, another thing is your doors. Your entry doors to your bedrooms and your bathrooms. Many investors are going to replace these because they like them to be uniform. Unless there's already like 6-panel doors in there or 2-panel doors, you know, the nicer doors, then he'll leave them. But if you're looking at them and they're just like they're just like the slab doors, which is all like smooth without the panels in them, the investor is probably going to take them out and put 6 panels or 2-panel doors in there to make it look better in there. So you want to count the doors. But you'll know that automatically. Like I can say, you know what, okay, if there's 4 bedrooms, 4 doors. There's 2 bathrooms, that's 6 doors. You got a closet in the hallway, okay, that's 7 doors. You got a door to the basement, okay, that's 8 doors. So you kind of just, in your estimate, you're going to say, okay, well, 8 doors in the property, I'm going to write that down. You know, so you're kind of getting a little bit better idea of the little things that the investor's looking for. Now, with the doors comes door hardware, right? So you're going to go through and when you put the price of the doors in there, which, okay, for the 6-panel doors, 36-inch here in New Jersey, we probably pay, you know, up to about $50 a piece for them. And then the hardware is the expensive part of the door. You know, that usually costs us a little bit more money, like $35 for each knob or whatever for the doors, because I do bronze on those as well, and the hinges. So each door, if it's a 36-inch door to a bedroom, you're talking, you know, each door to replace a 6-panel door in a bedroom, each door costs us about $150 to $200 per door. So if I'm doing 4-bedroom doors, and I'm going to figure out $150 to $200 per door to replace each door on the bedrooms. That's kind of something that I will automatically just write down the number of doors in there and then just put like $150 next to the door so I can get a general estimate of how many doors I have to replace. And then not only do you have entryway doors, but now you have closet doors, right? So when you go in the bedrooms, you either have the bifold, usually you have the bifold closet doors. So they have to be replaced if they're not already 6 panels, or many times they're missing or broken or damaged. The investor is going to go ahead and he's going to replace those 6-panel doors in each of the bedrooms. So again, you're going to have to write down, you know, how many sets of, you don't have to write it down per se, but kind of keep it in your head, you know, 3 sets of, or 4 bedrooms, you're going to have 4 sets of the bifold doors, which depending on which doors he buys, you know, bifold doors can run anywhere from, you know, $100 to $400 for the bifolds, depending on the brand or the design he wants or whatever. But that investor is going to go ahead and he's going to replace all of those doors, all the closet doors, all the entryway doors. So you got to try to figure that out. Now, again, I'm going through what I do in a property when I flip. Those are things that I automatically flip out. Okay, and so you're going through, okay, so you're going through and you just went through the kitchen, you saw the bedrooms, you know you need light fixtures, all that good stuff, right? So now you're going to walk into the bathrooms. Now, when you walk into the bathrooms, I love when I walk into these pink bathrooms, right? The tile's pink, the tub is pink, everything's pink. That's like a 1950s design. You know, I'm going to gut that thing. That thing's coming out. I'm going to take it out and redo the whole thing. I like to tile my showers. So when I walk into a bathroom, I'm automatically going to take into my estimate for the tiles surround for the bathroom. Okay, so I'm going to also, you know, I'm going to be putting that in my estimate. The tub, if the tub is rusty or, you know how sometimes tubs can get stained or chipped up, I'm going to replace the tub as well. I don't always replace the tubs. If they're in pretty good condition, I'll leave them. I'll take off the surround and I'll tile the surround and reseal everything. But I do switch out all the faucets in the bathtub and the shower head. All that has to come out. So when you're looking at your bathtub and you're looking in your bathroom, if the bathroom has a shower surround, which is going to have in the tub, you just need to kind of look at the tub to see if it has any iron stains in it, or if it's chipped, or if it's broken, or sometimes they have mold going on in them. If that tub doesn't look salvageable, you definitely want to pull that bathtub out, and that investor's going to pull that out. He's probably going to gut that bathroom. But if the tub looks salvageable, he may just take off the surround and go back with tile, because we all tile our surrounds. I don't know about in other states, but I like to tile my tub surrounds. I like to do them fancy with the little indents, and I make them look really nice. So again, you're going to try to figure out for the tile, the tub, you got the your faucets that go on there. So I'm going to say on a regular size bathroom with just a single vanity, okay, I'm going to say a single, let's say standard 36-inch vanity, the mirror, the vanity lights, all. If I walk to a bathroom and I look at a bathroom, I'm going to say $2,500. Without question, that bathroom's $2,500. I don't have to go detail it because I'm only the wholesaler. I am not going to be buying this property. So I'm just going to put that bathroom cost in there as $2,500 to redo that bathroom. So I'm just going to write that down. Okay, bathroom needs to be redone, $2,500. You don't have to go into detail with all the different things, but I'm just trying to let you know what they're going to be looking for to replace when you go in. But if you go in a house and it has a standard bathroom, which is a 36-inch sink, a tub, and a toilet, you're going to say, okay, $2,500 to replace that bathroom. Write it down. If there's 2 bathrooms, $2,500 times 2. Okay, so you don't have to go into detail. I'm just trying to give you how to figure out this estimate for this, okay? So good. We did the kitchen, and we did all the bedrooms, and we did the bathroom. So that's that floor, right? We just estimated that. So you're going to run those numbers. Well, now we're going to head down to the basement, which is the scariest part of these houses, because a lot of these houses have been sitting vacant for a really long time, especially if they're REOs. They've been sitting vacant for a long time. They've been exposed. They haven't had any heat or AC in them, so they've been exposed to all the weather from the outside, which means that inside the heat causes what? It causes everything to swell, right? All the floorboards, all the boards around the, all the stuff around the house, all those floorboards are going to swell in the heat, and then they're going to shrivel up in the cold. So what happens is they crack. You end up getting all these different stress cracks in this wood in the basement because the house has been vacant for a long time. It's been exposed to the heat and the cold without any heat or AC. So these floorboards are going to tend to have some splintering, some cracking, or some bowing. You want to make sure when you're down in that basement and you look up, you see that, okay? You want to notice that. And if you see a floorboard that's cracked or broken, you want to make sure you're writing that down. And you want to make sure that you're taking that into your estimate cost. Also, what I do in the basement is I'll go around the perimeter of the basement and I'll look. I have this screwdriver that's probably about this long. And I'll go around and I'll start poking around the edge of the walls at the edge of the basement. Why? Because in that wood, I want to see if that wood crumbles. If that wood crumbles, then there's termites going on in that house. So my long screwdriver, I'm going to go around and I'm going to be prying it into all the outskirts of this house, because I want to see if there's any termite damage going on in this property, which is something that I do. I always do it. Hi, Floyd. So definitely, yes, and the sill plates too. So you want to go, I was trying to think of the name of that. I'm like, what's this thing called? Sill plates. So there's a wooden sill plate. When a house is built, it sits on top of these wooden sill plates, right? And around the perimeter of the inside of the basement, you're going to see this wooden sill plate. Hi, Alex. So you want to take your screwdriver and you want to poke around at that wooden sill plate. If it's soft or it crumbles, then they probably have termite issues going on there. So what I'll do is I'll put a termite treatment in my estimate, which is usually, I don't know where, what they pay anywhere else, but here in New Jersey, I get a deal for $750, but it's usually about $1,500 for your termite treatment, depending on where you live. I get them pretty cheap because I do so many of them with this company. I automatically do termite treatments on all my houses. I don't even worry about anything except getting it done, because those buyers, when you get an end buyer, they're going to do a termite inspection. I guarantee you they're going to find something going on. They always do in their inspections. So I just go ahead and do it anyway. So I get termite treatments probably for about $700, But normal payment is probably anywhere between $1,200 and $1,500. So if you see soft going on with your screwdriver, then you want to automatically write down on your estimate like $1,200 to $1,500 for a termite treatment for that property. So in the basement, so okay, we looked at the floorboards and we looked around at the sill plates, and you're going to look for water, right? Of course, we want to see if there's any water coming in the basement. Now, if you go down to the first step and that basement is full of water, leave. Leave. Because that means there's a problem in the foundation, or there's a problem somewhere in that basement that is going to be expensive to treat. I don't go through that. I don't even deal with that as far as it goes for investors or my own properties. If I go into a house and that house has this much water in the basement, I leave. I don't deal with those kind of issues because they are headaches, and they become headaches as far as all that water sitting in that vacant property for that amount of time is going to cause problems in those walls and either cause bowing or pressure or whatever, stuff that I really don't want to deal with. So I'm just telling you, when you go down to the basement, if you see a lot of water in that basement, leave. End of story. That's how I am. Okay, so in the basement, if you see just some dampness on the walls, and not that much water, but you do see some dampness, that's okay, because those walls can be sealed, okay? So the investor's going to go ahead and he's going to come in and he's going to see that dampness, and sometimes they'll put new meshing on it and they'll reseal it to seal all those where all the dampness is coming in, which isn't too big of a deal, okay? That can be done. But a normal basement, to seal it, if it's damp or it has a little bit of water coming in, it cost me to get all that done with the mesh and I forget the name of the stuff that we use, but we use it for the walls. I know Laborio probably knows the name of it. He'll tell me in a minute. To seal a basement, you definitely want to, if there's any leakage or little leakage or moisture on those walls, that investor is going to want to seal that up. So on a normal basement, I figure probably to seal a basement, if it's a normal sized basement on like a 1,500 square foot property, is probably going to cost me about $5,000 to get that basement sealed. So it definitely, if there's a little bit of water, dry lock, there it is. Woo! I knew Laborio was going to know the name of it. Yes, Laborio, that's what I was trying to think of. So he's going to dry lock that basement so that the water doesn't come through. And I usually, on a normal property, about a 12 to 1,500 square foot property, to dry lock a basement, put the mesh up, and redo it, it's probably going to cost about $5,000 to reseal those walls. So that's another estimate that I'll put in there. If there's a lot, if it's noticeable with all this water. Now, a little bit of moisture is okay. You can just go over that. But if it's really noticeable on these walls, I'm automatically going to put $5,000 in my rehab cost to seal that basement. So, and you also, as you're walking down the steps to the basement, you want to take notice of any steps that are gone or missing or loose, stupid stuff like that. You're going to notice, as an investor, you would notice that. Okay, so now we're going to look at the heater. Okay, so if you're in the basement and you're looking at the heater, the first thing you want to look at, is it an oil heater? Because if it's an oil heater, then that means there's an oil tank somewhere, right? So if it's an oil heater, you want to know that, and you'll be able to tell, but because if it's an oil heater, it's going to be connected to a tank somewhere. You want to find that tank. You want to know where that tank is. Is that tank in the basement? Is it outside above ground, or is it underground? If it's underground, I don't deal with them. I don't deal with underground oil tanks. I will walk away from the house if it has an underground oil tank. I'll tell you from experience, I had a really bad nightmare one time. I wholesaled a house to an investor, not knowing that it had an underground oil tank. Neither one of us knew. Here, come to find out, it did. And what happened is that the ground was contaminated, not only around the oil tank, but it leaked under the neighbor's house. That contamination went under the neighbor's house. It cost that investor $150,000 to remediate that ground. I will never again take on a property with an underground oil tank. So I don't even deal with them. If it has an underground oil tank, I walk away from it. I walk away. So you want to know on that heater if it's connected to oil or not. And if it is connected to oil, you want to know where the tank is. If it's outside, fine, you want to see it. If it's in the basement, fine, you want to look at it. But if you can't find it anywhere, chances are it's underground, and you need to find that out. Okay? But if it's a gas heater, that's okay. But you want to check the age of the heater. Any heaters over, I'm going to say a heater over that's older than maybe 15 years old, I replace automatically. Maybe even older than 12 years old. If a heater is between 12 and 15 years old, that heater's getting replaced in that property. But if the heater is a newer heater and it looks like it's in place and the ductwork's good, then I don't need to put that in my estimate. But for me to replace a heater for a normal size house of 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, it's going to cost me, because my guys do it, my guys put it in. So to put my heaters in on these properties, it probably cost me about $6,000 to put the heater in to get that all set up. So between $5,000 and $6,000. So that's the estimate you can put on. So just figure if the heater is older, you'll see the date on the heater. If it's older than 15 years old, automatic replacement. If it looks rusted out, or if it looks like, things just don't look right, it looks rusted out, looks beat up, automatic replacement. So you're automatically going to figure in your head $6,000 for the heater. So I want you to get used to doing that. So now that you looked at the heater, you're going to try to find the electric panel box. You need to walk around the basement and try to find the panel box in the basement. You want to see the panel box. You want to look at it. You want to open it up, and you're going to see if you see knob and tubing, okay, which Google knob and tubing, you'll know what it looks like. It's little cloth wires that go into these little round balls all over the place. That means that whole house needs to be rewired. If you open the panel box and there's aluminum wiring, not copper wiring, but if you see aluminum wiring in that panel box, that whole house needs to be rewired. If you open the panel box and you see cloth wiring, that whole house needs to be rewired. So these are little things that we look for when we open up a panel box. But if I open up a panel box and I see these wires all look good and throughout the house they look good, then the electric doesn't need to be done. But my price to rewire an entire house, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, my price, it's going to cost me about $7,000 to rewire a house. That's my price. I don't know what these investors are paying for it, but I'll just have you figure out $7,000. So if you open up a panel box and you see knob and tubing, or you see aluminum wires, or you see wires with cloth on them, that house needs to be rewired. Just put it in your budget. So there we are. So that's the basement. Now, when you do your window price, make sure you include those basement windows too. Don't forget about those, because they're going to have to be replaced as well. Many times, especially in older houses, there's a lot going on around those windows. They're usually wooden, and the investor's going to want to pop them out and put some double pane or basement windows in there. So you want to include them in your price as well when you're going around for the window cost of like $350 per window. The basement windows aren't going to be that much, probably about $150, but it's going to depend on if they want to put the wells over top of them to hold the rainwater. But that's an investor call. That's not your call. Okay, so we're going to come back out of the basement. So now as I go through the house, I've done the doors, I've done the windows, I've done all the light fixtures, I've done my kitchen, I've done all my bathrooms, I just did my basement, my panel box, my heater, and hot water heater. You want to look at the hot water heater also while you're down in the basement, because you kind of want to see the age of that as well, because that may mean that usually investors automatically just pop in a new one of those. They're not that expensive. They may cost you about $500 depending on where you are, the size of the heater. So if you need to replace a hot water heater, just figure about $500 for the hot water heater. You can write that into your estimate. So now that we did all that part of the house, we just did all of it. We did the hot water heater, the plumbing. A lot of these houses, people have taken out all the copper. And in a way, they kind of do me a favor, because I like going back on my plumbing with PEX or my PVC. So I don't even like copper. So in a way, they're kind of doing me a favor if they take all the copper out of the house, because I'm going to go back with my PVC or PEX plumbing in there. So you're going to just look, and you know what? Don't even figure out that cost, because that's going to be left up to the investor. So you don't have to worry too much about that, because it's really not that much money to put new plumbing PEX or whatever they need to do on there. Okay, so now the chimney. Yep, I didn't get to that yet. Hold on. I'm getting there, Donna. That's my next step. Okay, so now what you want to do is, you want to make sure now you have to find out if that house is well and septic or public sewer and water. Big thing. Because if it's well and septic, you need to know about those. You need to know what's going on with those, okay? So what I do is, I know this is going to sound really gross, but I'll find the septic tank in the yard, and I'll have my guys lift up the lid. Because I want to look inside, and I want to make sure it's not a cesspool. So when I look inside and I see, septics are going to have the little pipes coming out of the ground for the little vent pipes. That's a septic system. But, if it has a lid that you have to pull up and you look down in there, it could be a cesspool that you're dealing with. So you want to look for block, meaning in a cesspool, what happens is it's made out of cement block inside, or brick. And it's just really like a circle made out of block where you'll see the ground is dirt. But you're not going to see it because it's probably going to be full. But it's going to be the walls of a cesspool is made out of like cinder blocks or stone, or usually bricks, and you'll see the little gaps in between. Because what happens in a cesspool is all that waste goes into the cesspool, and then it seeps into the ground. All the urine and all the nasty stuff seeps into the ground, while all the hard stuff stays in the cesspool and has to be vacuumed out. Well, they are no longer in New Jersey. They're illegal. You cannot sell a house with a cesspool ever. It will be inspected to make sure you have a septic tank. So with a septic tank, when you look in the yard, you're going to see a little vent pipe. And then if you follow that out, you're going to see a lid, a cement lid. If you pull that lid up, have somebody pull it up for you, and you look inside that septic tank, if it's full, that's a good thing, because that means it's not cracked or broken or anything like that. So if I see a full septic tank, I'm kind of happy with that, because that means that even though that house has been sitting vacant for so long, that cesspool is not cracked or broken. It's able to hold all that liquid. So that's kind of like a good sign. So I don't worry about that. But if I open that cesspool lid and it's all dried out inside, there's a big problem. Generally that says that septic tank is going to have to be replaced. To replace a septic tank is different in every state, so you really have to look at your states. To replace a 3-bedroom house septic tank in New Jersey, it costs $25,000 to replace a septic tank. It's a $25,000 replacement. So if you really think the house is a good deal, you can include the septic in there. But if you see a septic that needs to be replaced, just my suggestion is run like hell, depending on where you live. I don't really deal with them because I know a lot of investors, they don't deal with them. Or there's not enough room in the spread. Now, if you have a no-brainer deal and you've got a lot of room in that spread for a new septic tank, then go right ahead. So, but you really need to put that in your rehab cost, because it's going to determine the offer that you make on this house. Now, as far as the well goes, the problem with the well is you can't really test a well until the power's on. And a lot of these houses that are vacant, their power is not on, so it's hard to test to see if the well is working, because you need that pump to work from the well in order to get that well, to see if that well is working. Okay, so a lot of times it's hard to even see if a well is good at a vacant property, because with no power onto the house, you can't really test the well. So I just kind of leave that alone, and I leave that up to the investor. And then you're going to look at the side of the house. You want to see the chimney. So as you look at the side of the house and you see where the chimney is, you want to make sure it's not bowing, it's not cracked, there's no missing bricks. You want to make sure that that chimney looks like it's really, solid and intact, and not really breaking apart or crumbling. That's a really important part too. So now, as far as the siding goes, I don't get too wrapped up on that, because that becomes investor choice. I'm a wholesaler, right? So whatever you want to do with the siding is up to you. But if I look at the house and it's got siding and that siding's intact, I don't worry about estimating a price for the siding. But if I look at a house and the siding is cracking and peeling and falling down, then I know my investor is going to want to re-side that house, that property, right? So it's hard to say, because there's so many different siding prices. Me, I just have my boys do my siding for me, and they believe it or not, my boys can side a whole house for me for about $3,000. But that's my kids. So I leave that up to the investor as well. That's a thing that, that's up to the investor. He needs to decide what he's going to do with that. I don't go too out on kind of getting the numbers for that, unless I see that it's really tragic and it just looks horrible. Then I'll go into my RS Means contractor guide, and I'll look up the price of siding and materials to get a good estimate for that, because that's something I don't know how to really give you an estimate for. But that's kind of like how I go through a deal. So when I walk through a house, these are the things that I look for to try to figure out this rehab cost. But I don't get too caught up in that. Here's what I do. For all the cosmetics, meaning, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the flooring, the paint, all that cosmetic stuff, I'm going to take $25 and times it by the square foot of the property to get that cost. So I don't even go worried about detailing it. That cosmetic stuff, a cosmetic rehab, I'm going to times $25 times the square foot of the house to get the rehab cosmetic cost. So I don't know. I don't have a calculator in front of me. But for a 1,500 square foot house, somebody figured that out for me. It's $25 per square foot. That's your cosmetic rehab price. Boom. I don't go too crazy with it, right? So I'm going to figure that out for the cosmetic repairs, but then I'm going to add in there, did I see that the heater needed to be replaced? So I'm going to add that to that cosmetic price, okay? Did I see that the septic tank was bad? Yep, I'm going to add that into that cosmetic rehab price. Did I see that the wiring was bad? Did I see that it had to be rewired, that I had to rewire that property? I'm going to add that $7,000 to $10,000 in that rehab cost of the cosmetic price that I just came up with. So it's real important that you start with your cosmetic rehab price, and in order to get that cosmetic rehab price, meaning your bathrooms, your kitchen, your cabinets, your flooring, all that cosmetic stuff, I will simply times $25 times the square foot of the property, and that's going to give me the cosmetic rehab cost of the property. And trust me, we have had our own rehab company for now, we're going on 12 years, and my husband has been a GC for 37 years. Every time we use that formula, we get really close to what it would really cost to break down a proposal or an estimate for cosmetic repairs on a property. So times $25 times your square foot of your house will give you your cosmetic rehab cost to start with, right? So you're going to figure that out. And then you're going to add in, if you saw that the heater needed to be replaced, you're going to add that into there. If you saw that the wiring was knob and tube, or was it aluminum wiring, or what was going on in that panel box, maybe the house needed to be rewired, you're going to add that to your cosmetic price. So it's really, as a wholesaler, you're really not going too deep into the numbers, but you are trying to get as close as you can to your investor's number when you're going to wholesale that property. So you definitely want to start out with, yes, I went out, you know why I went up, Floyd? Because I realized, Floyd, that $20 in some areas, it wasn't enough. As I was teaching my students, I learned, like in California, the cost of materials is higher than it is here in New Jersey. So I went up to $25 a square foot because I want to account for other states as well as far as their cost goes. So $25 a square foot is a really good number now that I'm going to stick with, because it helps people that have higher material costs in different states. So again, what you're going to do is when you go through the house, you're going to take your cosmetic price that you just figured out, and you're going to add, if you just looked at the heater, if that needs to be replaced, you're going to add that in there. You just kind of looked at the electric, you're going to add that in there if that needs to be replaced, right? So these are things, the windows are extras, they need to be added in there. The roof is an extra, needs to be added to the cosmetic price. So it's definitely a good foundation for you guys. Yes, a new kitchen is included in the cosmetic rehab price. Yes, Donna. So when I go into a house, your most expensive part of your rehab is going to be your kitchen. A kitchen is going to run you to rehab and gut out a kitchen. Now, if the cabinets are wooden cabinets, I never replace my good wooden cabinets. I will restain them, sand them down myself, refinish them or whatever, and refinish them. I don't replace good old wooden cabinets that are solid. I leave them up and I just make them look better. So, yes, plus minus Anderson. Yeah, but you know what, Laborio? I don't want to let them get into like Anderson windows, regular windows, because that's not really their call as wholesalers. So I let them say $350 per window just for your double pane normal windows. And if the investor wants to go up on it and do Anderson, like, that's his choice. I want my people to just make sure that they have $350 estimated per window for your normal double pane windows. You know, if the investor wants to go fancy, like even the countertops, I just want you to estimate, as a wholesaler, you're just going to estimate replacing the countertops with laminate countertops. Let's estimate it that way. If that investor wants to go up to granite, well, that's up to him, but you need to give him an estimate price, which is your base price, to replace everything. So if he wants to go extreme on things, that's his call, but you need to go in with a rehab number that's realistic for him to start with. Okay, so it's really important, guys, that you get this rehab number together and try to get it as best as you can. Another thing that you need to take in place is landscaping. That investor is going to want to make that curb appeal look really good on that property, right? So if you go into, you go to a property, you stand back and you see that, you know, this thing needs some help, right? You got trees hanging over the house, which is usually the case. The branches are hitting the roof, or there's trees, you know, just too close to the house. I hate trees close to my houses. I like to trim all those trees back and move them away from my house, which costs me, you know, landscaping fees, but I don't like anything near my homes So I make sure all those branches and all are cut. So you want to make sure that that you put landscaping prices in there as well, because that they want to get curb appeal or whatever. So I'll probably figure in there, in that rehab cost, I'll probably put like $1,000 in there just for a landscaping cost to get that done. Okay, windows are not included in the cosmetic rehab price. No, windows are extra. Now your flooring, your basic standard flooring is included in that cosmetic rehab price that you came up with. If that investor wants to do something special, then that's on him. Okay, so windows are an add-on when you're doing your rehab price. When I say cosmetic, I'm talking about basic flooring, basic kitchen, basic bathroom. You're going to take that into account and you're going to give that to the investor. Here's the rehab price. If he wants to take it to extremes, that's fine. But you as a wholesaler, your job is to give him a basic rehab price, because that's what you're going to use to make your offer. You have to get that. It's key to get that rehab price or that repair cost as close as you can to your investors, because you're the one that's making the offer. You're the one that's creating the deal. And that's what we do as wholesalers. We create deals. Deals are not found, they're created, right? So we create deals by all the numbers that we work into these deals. So when you're looking at a deal, and my offer formula, I put that in the real estate den, so you've seen my offer formula. My rehab cost, I try to get as close as I can on these rehab prices for these investors, because I'm going to have to deduct that from the ARV to get my offer price. So you really want to pay attention to, the little things. Look at the driveway of a house. When you're walking up to a house and you look at that driveway, is that driveway all cracked up? Does it look horrendous? Well, guess what? That investor is probably going to want to redo that driveway. So as an investor, when you're walking into these houses, I know you're a wholesaler, but I want you to think about what you would do if you were the investor, if you were the rehabber. What would you fix and what would you repair? You need to look at it and figure that into your cost. And like the driveway, I don't do a lot of driveways. I mean, I think I've repaved maybe I've flipped almost 100 properties since 2009, and I think I've repaved maybe 20 driveways out of the 100. A lot of the driveways can be repaired, or here in New Jersey, a lot of our driveways are stone, so I just re-stone over them. But you want to look at the driveway. If it's a cement driveway and it's all cracked up, it's going to need to be redone. So that's another cost. You want to look into your RS Means contractor guide if you have it, and you want to try to get the price for the standard driveway to repair it. So I'm hoping that this helps you guys to really, when you're going into the house, I don't want you to be blinded by these rehab costs, because you're not going to find a contractor to go with you that's not going to want to be paid. And if you're out there trying to make money as a wholesaler, you don't have the money to be paying a contractor. So I really want you to pay attention when you're walking in these houses to know what to look for as far as these rehabs go and these costs go. So that way, after you write, and I'm going to give you the sheet in the real estate den, I already have, I'm going to have the link there for my walkthrough sheet, which is my sheet that has everything listed. And all you need to do when you walk through, it'll say windows and you put down how many. It'll already say heater and you put down yes or no. It's already going to have that on this sheet that I'm going to give you in the real estate den that you're going to be able to print out and take to these houses with you. That way you just go through it and you put numbers in there. It'll have, the sheet will say doors, entryway doors, and you're just going to write next to it how many there were in the house. So it makes it a little bit easier for you. It's like a little checklist as you're going through, to help you with these properties. So I'm going to put that in the real estate den. Underneath the replay, you're going to find, underneath this replay, once I put it in the real estate den, underneath of it, you're going to see a link that's going to give you that checklist. So I really want you to focus on these things that I talked about, because once you get that checklist and you fill it out and you get home, you have to sit down and really kind of think about these rehab costs like I told you, because you need to calculate that into your offer. So that way when you get home, like my offer formula is ARV. I already know the ARV of the property because I've already researched it, right? So you're going to do ARV times 0.75 minus your rehab costs, minus your wholesaling fee, times 0.97 for your closing costs. Boom, that's going to give you your offer price. I can give you that in 30 seconds. Okay, back. So that's what I need you to do. So I'm really, if you have any questions, you can shoot me a question in the den. I'll be glad to answer the questions for you. But I'm hoping that this chat kind of gave you a rundown on what you need to look for when you're going into these properties. so that you can get as close as possible on these rehab costs. That's where a lot of wholesalers get stuck, is trying to figure out, a lot of wholesalers get stuck trying to figure out the rehab costs on properties. A lot of wholesalers, when they get stuck and they walk through these properties, they don't really know what they're looking for. So I'm hoping that everything I just went through is really helping you to know what to look for when you're walking through these properties, because the rehab costs or the repair costs on these properties is essential to creating the deal for your investor and for your buyer. You really want to, we're deal creators. We're magicians when it comes to creating deals. That's what we do as wholesalers, right? So in order to do that, though, we need to have our numbers correctly. We need to have them right. So you need to make sure that your rehab number is right.